Every year, as October 31 approaches, the familiar debate is re-emerging primarily among the Christian community. Is celebrating Halloween a thing? If you are not a religious person, it might sound absurd that some view Halloween as sinful. I mean, come on, it's just kids dressing up and collecting candy, right? Apparently, not everyone thinks that way. There are actually some religious groups, particularly some sect of Protestant Christian, proclaiming that joining in Halloween festivity is a grave sin. The unease arises from Halloween's origin in the pagan festival of Samhain and its association with the occult. Modern Halloween with costume and trick-or-treating is largely secular, however some still associated with perceived dark force, leading to objections. For instance, a certain Christian group might avoid Halloween feeling the perceived tie to witchcraft. In some schools, Halloween celebrations has been replaced with quote-unquote fall festival to avoid religious concern. Some of them even downright cancel it. For example, in 2021, several schools or school districts in Seattle, East Lansing, Michigan, and Princeton, New Jersey decided to forego Halloween celebration, citing reason of quote-unquote equity and concern about quote-unquote marginalized students. The phenomenon is a result of a deeply held belief intersecting with evolving cultural traditions. This question has been discussed, debated, and dissected by numerous individuals from both secular and religious backgrounds. So let's dive into this topic with BAA. Hi, I'm Xiaoche. Welcome to What People Also Ask, where I answer some of the most Googled questions with even more Googling. Today's question is, why do some religious people, especially Christians, don't celebrate Halloween? Let's start with the first one. Is Halloween a thing from Christians' perspective? So before we judge the holiday, understanding its historical root is crucial. According to Beth Allison Barr, a historian and author specializing in medieval and religious history, in her article titled Why Evangelical Christians Are Afraid of Halloween, published in Payfield on October 31, 2018, Halloween holds a close connection to the Christian festival of All Saints' Day and All Souls' Days. Contrary to the public belief that Halloween is mostly pagan, Barr suggested that it's rooted more in Christian history. On the other hand, the website of Focus on the Family, a global Christian ministry founded in 1977, offers a counter perspective on its website, focusonthefamily.com. In an article published on their website titled Should Christians Celebrate Halloween?, it stated that Halloween dates back to the Celtic festival of Samhain, which involved pagan and supernatural rituals. However, the article also highlighted that Pope Gregory III later moved All Saints' Day to coincide with Samhain, signifying the onset of Halloween association with Christian traditions. Cult believes that on Samhain, the soul of the dead will visit their homes, and those who had died in the past year would travel to the next world. As a result, people would light bonfire and wear costume to ward off ghosts. They also believe that the presence of spirit can enhance their priest called Druid's ability to predict the future. This belief could be a contributing factor to the widespread practice of fortune-telling during Halloween in contemporary times. As to the Catholic root of Halloween is closely related to the Catholic festival of All Saints and All Souls' Days, especially the practice called souling, where the poor will go around asking for pastry called soul cake, with the promise of praying for the donor's deceased loved one, which later became the tradition of trick-or-treating. Nowadays, many Protestant, especially evangelical Christians, tend to disapprove of Halloween due to its perceived pagan origin and the way which contemporary celebrations of the holiday are believed to conflict with Christian values. Evangelical Christians often emphasize strict adherence to the teaching of the Bible, and many interpret Scripture as being in opposition to engage with the supernatural or participating in practice that might be seen as celebrating evil or darkness. Catholics, on the other hand, have a different historical and theological context for understanding Halloween. The connotation of Halloween to All Saints' Day and All Souls' Day provides a framework that ties the holiday more directly to Christian beliefs and practice. The Catholic tradition of honoring saints and praying for the deceased fit naturally with historical practice associated with Halloween, making it easier for Catholics to participate in this holiday while still aligning with their religious beliefs. Furthermore, some Protestants also oppose specifically Catholics' adaptation of Halloween into All Souls' Days. And in order to explain what's going on here, we have to talk about Purgatory. So why Catholics pray for the dead, and what is All Souls' Day? As it turns out, a lot of Catholics in medieval times believe almost all Catholics will go to Purgatory, where they will be tortured with fire until they were purified. The great news is that Purgatory, where Christians go, is not an eternal punishment like hell, where non-Christians are believed going to. But keep in mind, temporary can mean a very long time. According to an article titled Tezo on 7 Years in Purgatory for Everything, published by Patheo, which is an online media company providing information and commentary about religion, Johann Tezo, a German Dominican preacher known for selling indulgences during the early 16th centuries, claimed that everything committed by Christians will result in 7 years of suffering in purgatory. According to him, despite Jesus Christ's sacrifice to erase the penalty for original sin, Roman Catholicism believes that post-baptism sins require temporal punishment. This punishment occurs in purgatory, where souls endure fiery torment. While the pain in purgatory is temporary, it can last a very long time. And according to Tezo, it's 7 years of fiery torture for each sin. Many medieval Christians, especially Catholic, believe this teaching. Just take a moment to imagine believing that. Let's say you are a very good person and only commit one sin per day, which is not very likely because that includes eating too much butter and use Facebook as a verb. That means you will end up spending 2,555 years in purgatory for the sins you commit per year. And if you live to 70, you will be facing 178,850 years of suffering in purgatory, burning alive. Isn't that crazy? This is why it is important to pray for the dead, because they also believe prayer can shorten the time your loved ones spend in purgatory. The Catholic Church back then believed you could reduce your time in purgatory through prayer methods and the treasury of merit, where the merit of saint could be transferred to lessen one's time in purgatory, aka indulgences. You can imagine this system lead to a lot of spiritual abuses. Many Christians feel trapped. The sheer mathematical burden of their sin and consequent time in purgatory appear insurmountable without indulgences. Indulgences were essentially certificates that reduce or even nullify one's time in purgatory. While some indulgences were granted for act of piety or pilgrimage, others were sold for money. Tezo's sales of indulgences, which claimed to remit all purgatorial penalties, was especially controversial. By paying an amount, one could not only secure their passage straight to heaven, but also release deceased loved ones from the purgatorial fires. Tezo's zealous promotion of indulgences include his notorious catchphrase, "As soon as the coin in the coffer rings, the soul from the purgatory springs," which captured the transactional nature of his message, which may perceive as exploiting people's fear and guilt. Tezo's activities drew sharp criticism from Martin Luther, a German theologian who challenged the church authority and questioned the validity of indulgences. Luther's 95 Theses, a document outlining his objections, sparked the Protestant Reformation, a movement that ultimately led to the division of Western Christianity. Luther challenged the commercialization of salvation and emphasized that Christ's sacrifice was sufficient for the total forgiveness of sin. Given this historical background, the opposition of Protestant, especially evangelical, to all souls' days can be seen a manifestation of long-standing theological dispute between Protestant and Catholics. The evangelical worldview, with its emphasis on the personal relationship with God and authority of Scripture alone, standing in stark contrast with Catholic doctrine of purgatory and indulgences, which they perceive as inconsistent with biblical teaching. Further complicate the matter, some would argue that in the United States specifically, deep-seated anti-Catholic sentiment originating in colonial time and intensifying with the 19th century influx of Catholic immigrants also play a part in Protestant anti-Halloween sentiment, as aforementioned article written by Professor Barr suggests. It's a very interesting article, I recommend you read it. So I want to talk about the concept of purgatory a bit more, because while some consider it to be a nice concept of second chance, others see it as a rather legalistic belief that can lead a believer to become overly preoccupied and worry about their thought and action. So how do different beliefs between Protestant, Catholic, and Jew impact scrupulosity across various religious groups? The concept of purgatory and the prospect of enduring such a prolonged agony after death would have been deeply unsettling. This intense fear and anxiety surrounding religious doctrine could manifest as obsessive-compulsive symptom, especially in the form of scrupulosity. Scrupulosity is a psychological disorder often linked to obsessive-compulsive disorder (OCD), characterized by intense feeling of guilt or anxiety over moral or religious issues. Individuals with scrupulosity may be consumed by fear or committed sin, or worry excessively about their action or thought, leading them to hell or purgatory. Such concern, even if objectively unfounded, can provoke compulsive behavior like excessive prayer, repeated confessions, and constant seeking of reassurance to avoid perceived spiritual consequences. Though closely associated with religious belief, particularly around concept of sin, hell, and purgatory, scrupulosity can also manifest in non-religious contexts, focusing on moral perfection. This intersection of religious and OCD bring forth intriguing pattern, especially when considering the diverse religious background of individuals. A study published in Behavioral and Cognitive Psychotherapy in 2019 found that those who identifying as Catholic reported the highest level of scrupulosity, compared to those identified as Protestant Jewish and those with no religious affiliation. The heightened level of scrupulosity among Catholics could potentially be attributed to stringent doctrine, such as belief in purgatory. One caveat of this research is its reliance on a relatively small sample size. Moreover, the study doesn't differentiate between mainline Protestant, known for their more lenient doctrine, and evangelical Protestant, known for their stricter and more exclusive view on salvation. By lumping all Protestant into single category, the data may potentially be distorted. I'm wondering if we compare only evangelical Protestant to Catholic, would the result be any different? Let me know what you think. But let's just move on to the next question. Has Halloween's religious significance diminished over time in the US? Luckily, nowadays, we usually do not associate Halloween with religious connotation anymore. According to a study published in the journal Ethnolingual in 2017, the way Americans view Halloween has changed over time. The research used tool called Corpus of Contemporary American English, COCA, and the Corpus of Historical American English, COHA, to look into how words related to Halloween have been used in the past and present. By examining these word patterns, we can get a more clear idea of how society view on a topic have shifted over time. Originally, Halloween was first celebrated in America before becoming popular worldwide. Over the years, the word used to describe Halloween in America have changed, indicating a shift in perspective. This study aimed to find out which descriptive word or adjective were most commonly linked to Halloween and how those associations varied over different time periods. The result? In the past, words linked to Halloween often have religious or sacred meaning. However, more recently, words associated with Halloween has become more fun, joyful, and playful. This change suggests that Americans now see Halloween more as a time for celebration and enjoyment rather than solemn or religious event. So while Halloween may have once had religious significance, today is more about dressing up, playing tricks, and having fun. So if you made it to the end of the video, chances are that you enjoy learning why people also ask on Google. But let's face it, reading PAA yourself will be a pain. So here's the deal, I will do the reading for you and upload a video compiling some fun PAA once a week. All you have to do is to hit the subscribe button and the bell icon so you won't miss any PAA report that I compile. So just do it right now. Bye!